Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid Podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, back after a little hiatus. But I'm really happy to be back. And I'm really happy to be joined by Doominal Crossing. Doom, how are you today, sir?
Doing very well. My mom got COVID last week, but she has since tested negative a couple weeks ago, so very thankful for that. Whole family is walking. Otherwise, we continued our Hollow Knight playthrough. We had to stop that for a couple weeks because my last capture card broke, but my new one finally came in, so we continued Hollow Knight. And while I don't think I quite like Hollow Knight as much as the general consensus, I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I really dug the most recent boss that I fought, the Soul Master. That was a lot of fun. It actually reminds me a lot of the Dread boss philosophy, where it's all about memorizing patterns, and once you start doing that, you can start doing some really cool tricks and, really clutch, frame perfect dodges, and it's a good time. The music is also super hyped during that fight, and yeah, really excited to continue that, and thank you for everyone that tuned in to that stream.
Yeah, I saw you streaming, and I was going to tune in, but I actually went out, it was right as I was going out for dinner. So, yeah, we'll do an episode on Hollow Knight sometime in the future. I think I'm with you. I like it a lot. I don't know if I like it as much as a lot of people do, although, I really, really like Hollow Knight. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, one thing that you kind of touched on is, I actually don't feel like that game was, that difficult. And I'm not, a great gamer by any means, but, I don't know. I mean, I died, but, a lot of people say that Ori is difficult too, and I also don't think that game is very hard. So it's I don't know. It's weird how that works, I guess.
Yeah, I think
maybe I'm better than I thought.
Yeah, I think that second Ori escape sequence was that was the one that really got me. I think we remember talking about that during that breakthrough. But yeah, Hollow Knight. I would say Hollow Knight's bosses definitely. I mean, again, they remind me of Metroid Dread bosses in the sense where it's hey, you're gonna die a lot. But every time you die, you're going to learn something, and you're going to do a little better each time, and it keeps you going. I think Hollow Knight is less difficult and more annoying with some of its checkpoints, if that makes sense. Because while I love the Soul Master boss, I did not like how far the closest save point was, or the one that I found at least. It seemed like it was the closest. And having to do that trek each time to get back to that boss, whereas in Dread, it's just hey, you know what? Start right outside, do it again. It's little quality of life improvements like that definitely makes a big difference. But nonetheless, still a fun boss.
Right. Well, you did a good job last week. We had Lacey Johnson on. She has a radio voice, if I've ever heard one. My goodness.
Lacey
sounds
was
like $1 million
such a
bucks.
Phenomenal guest. I had a blast talking with her.
Oh, my.
And, absolutely. Yeah. We are 1,000% going to have her on again. It was so much fun. And I would love for you all to meet her.
Yeah, so I was really bummed that, I guess on one hand it kind of worked out because we were looking to do some shows while I was in Chicago, but I was bummed that I was in Chicago and couldn't be a part of that show, but yeah, we'll definitely have her back on, and man, what a time that was had over in Chicago. We raised $16,000 over the course of 10 days, so Man, I know that a couple people from the Omega Metroid community tuned in and watched me slog my way through a couple of Zelda games. I love my gimmick there.
Watched you beat your favorite game of all time, Andy. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, so I've cultivated a great gimmick at Zelda Dungeon where, my gimmick is that, I'm, awful at video games and people want to watch me be bad at video games, which I actually love because then, I don't really have to practice. I don't really, there's no pressure. It's the pressure is just be bad, and I'm I can do that. That's great. So, yeah, it was a fantastic week. I talked about it on the Spiteri show. I talked about it on the latest episode of the Zelda Cast. Awesome week. I'm really hoping that we can put something even a fraction of that magnitude together for the Omega Metroid team. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, it was a great time, and it's a really great feeling. I was telling Dak this. By the way, we're Dakless today, and it's kind of a joke at this point how Dak and I just can't get together and do a podcast episode. But we were talking the other day, and I was telling him it's such a nice feeling when like you go away and everything still runs properly while like you know what I mean? Like you don't need to be there to like explicitly oversee every little detail. And I was so relieved and happy and just thankful that you guys did such a great job while I was doing my thing. So shout out to to the amazing team and specifically you for hosting that episode, Doom. You did a good job, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but like, just how naturally the conversation just kind of came. I mean, again, it was one of, if not our longest episodes ever. So yeah,
that's got to be the longest episode ever.
I was very proud with how that turned. I wasn't sure if like one of the other M episodes, one of like those flashback episodes we did when you did your 1 year milestone, I think it was.
Yeah, I don't think that we've ever crossed the 2 hour divide. I would have broken that up into 2 shows actually myself, but that's neither here nor there. It was definitely you set a new record, that's for sure. And you know what? That was fine because we had a short episode the week before, kind of one of the placeholder episodes while I was in Chicago. So it all balances out.
Absolutely, perfectly balanced as all things should be.
Well, let's talk about some perfect balance today, Doom. We are here to finally talk about a topic that I feel like maybe it's just in our small circle, but I feel like people have been asking for this for a long time, and we are here to deliver. This is
the fans
probably
what they want.
This is the only time we can't go back to this. It will never go back to this as in depth as we will today. So this is the only chance. If you were dying for Metroid Prime Pinball Retrospective, by God, you're going to get everything today. Because we are here to talk all things Metroid Prime Pinball. We're going to go table for table, minigame for minigame. We're going to talk about our scores. We're going to talk about our experiences with it. We're going to talk about some other stuff around this game. And, really get into the nitty-gritty with this oft-forgotten DS title. So I'm actually like fired up to talk about this. I was playing Metroid Prime Pinball all yesterday. I think you said that the same thing. And I just want to explicitly say at the beginning of this episode, I am horrible at Metroid Prime Pinball. I am so awful at this game. I'm not kidding. I am like so awful at this game. All right, like, did you unlock the final tables, Doom? Like, is this an easy game for you?
Well, so back when I played it as a lad, I have beaten the game. I have beaten the game. I've rolled the credits, and on one of my runs, I actually managed to do it twice. So for those who don't know, it's basically Metroid Prime Pinball. It works like an old school like arcade game where after you beat the game and roll credits, it starts you over at the first level again, except the difficulty is ramped up. So basically,
right.
So basically, like every time you like do like a little mini game or a segment, you start at level 1. But if you do that again, you'll do level 2. Well, once you go back to that table, all of those mini games are still saved. So if you do another Burrow or Bash, for example, you'll be at like Burrow or Bash level 3, level 4,
3?
Where there's more swarming at you, where they tank more hits, and so yeah, the difficulty just keeps ramping up, and it's basically just stop till you drop. And that's basically where my story comes in, because I told you before the show that I had a little story.
Well, let's tell that story, and then I'm going to tell a story about how I acquired this game as well. So let's get it cooking here. Let's start. Give us the origin story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, my acquiring story isn't really that interesting. I just, my mom picked it up for me at Target, like, back when the game came out in 2005. But the story I wanted to tell was in preparation for the episode this week. So, Andy was like, yo, we're doing it. We're talking about pinball. So naturally, I'm like, yeah, boy! And so I go into my retro game cabinet where all my consoles are stored. My NES, my SNES, my Genesis. It's got all the hookups in there. And I'm looking for my DS, and I can't find it. And I'm like, what? That's not right. This is the retro game console drawer. This is where everything is. So I'm like digging around, and I'm looking for it. There's nothing there. I check my controller drawer, nothing there, and I'm like, oh my god, I lost it. It's gone. what did I do? I can't have lost it in a move because I've played it in this house before. I have memories of it. There's no way. Did I like accidentally like throw it out in one of my electronic wastes? Like, and I was freaking out for a moment. So I went to bed last night, and then all of a sudden it's 5 in the morning, and I just have like this epiphany. You know, you probably don't know because you're not a SpongeBob fan, but for our audiences out there, you know the Squidward meme where it shows him sleeping with his eyes closed, and then the next frame his eyes are like wide open, bloodshot. That was literally me at 5 in the morning when I had the epiphany, and I remembered where it was, and I looked in one of my closets, dug through a bunch of boxes, and I found the Mad Catz case that I've had for nearly as long as I've had that original DS. And I opened that bad boy up, and man, it was beautiful. The original 2004 launch brick DS with
wow,
with my game cards still intact, including the goated Metroid Prime Pinball and my charger. So I couldn't play it immediately. I had to charge it back up. This DS had not been turned on in so long that I had to use I had to do the entire boot up user sequence again. So I had to like input my birthday and like the time, and it was funny, you know, inputting like 2022 on a original DS and all that. But yeah, I charged it back up, and yeah, this whole day I've been playing Metroid Prime Pinball, and man, the nostalgia, man, the memories, it feels really nice. I'm looking at it right now. I am holding it in my hands right now. Feels good. Feels good.
Do you want to know the last game that I played in my like original DS? Are you ready for this? Ripened Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love.
I am not surprised.
And I played that because I bought a fan translation cart on either eBay or Etsy, something like that. And it wouldn't run into 3DS like Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land does. It only runs in the original DS, so that is what I played it for. So yeah, I played mine in a 3DS, and I think I have a story that's kind of like a lot of Metroid fans, where this game came out back in the day, and I was like, no, not interested in that. Doesn't, you know, not for me. I want to play like a Metroid game, not a pinball game. And so I didn't play it for like a long time. And then shortly after we started the podcast, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, you know, if we're going to have a weekly Metroid show, we're going to need a lot of different topics and different things to talk about. And like, there's this game that I've never played, and maybe it's not a Metroid game exactly, but, you know, it's probably still something that we're going to want to talk about at some point. So I actually went down, like, the rabbit hole of, I joined, like, a Facebook video game group that, like, buys and sells local games, stuff like that. I bought a ton of GameCube games also, but I eventually tracked down someone that was selling Metroid Prime Pinball, and I tried for, like, 3 months before I finally found somebody that was selling this game. And I finally got it. And you want to know how much I paid for this game in 2000? I think it was 20.
Well, you already told me, but feel free to tell our audience.
$60, $60 for this game, which I guess isn't like completely outrageous because it's like, you know, it's $50 Canadian when it came out originally. But still, I was just like, oh yeah, this should be like a totally cheap game to find. Maybe I'll pay $5, $10. I'll go drive and pick it up. Nope. I paid $60, and the front cover of Metroid Prime Pinball has water damage. So the cover is faded.
Ruined.
Which is actually fine, because like I could just make or print off a new cover, but I haven't done it yet. But yeah, that's I finally tracked it down. I played it for a little bit when I got it, and I was like, God, I'm horrible at this. Put it away, and I honestly didn't really pick it back up until this weekend. So yeah, I'm fired up to talk about it, and let's start off by going table for table. But even before we get there, I guess I do want to say this. So this was made by Fuse Games, who I don't believe they're in business anymore, but they were a studio.
They're in business,
but they're a different name.
Yeah.
So this studio was prolific for making pinball games, and I think that shows in this, because I think that it would have been really easy to make a really fast, cheap pinball game and push it out the door and have a bunch of people buy it and, you know, not really put in the work. It would have been easy to pull a Kirby here. You know what I mean? Like, slap the Kirby name on this, and the Metroid name in this case, but like slap a name on it on a not very good game, push it out, and like, there you go. Easy check, work is done, small team, we make bank. But Fuse Games put in a lot of work, and as we'll talk about with the different mini games, with the table setup, it does, like, it feels like it's not completely out of place in the Metroid series. Obviously, yes, this is a pinball game, but I think I was just, like, really impressed, like, how, I don't know, Metroid-y some of the different levels feel, and, like, there's still an assortment of fun mini-games, and stuff that makes you feel like, okay, like, this is a Metroid title that's a pinball game, and not just, like, versus thinking, like, this is a pinball game with, like, some Metroid stuff slapped on it to convince me that it's part of the Metroid franchise. You know what I mean?
It feels more like a Metroid game than Federation Force. Let's just say it.
Yeah, and you know what? In some ways, I think I could agree with that. Yeah. Obviously, look, it's a pinball game first and foremost, but they did. I think that they went the extra mile, and they didn't really have to, because I think a lot of Metroid fans probably think this, like, when I see a game that's called Metroid Prime Pinball, I'm just like, this is a cash grab because Samus turns into a ball and fits easy into, you know, a pinball aesthetic or whatever, and it's going to be, you know, made as quickly and cheaply as it possibly can, and, you know, that's going to be what this game is. And I don't think that this game is like that at all. So I just wanted to say that at the top so that, you know, people can know, because I'm not sure if people are going to be interested in Metroid Prime Pinball, but I do think that it is worth your time if you're a Metroid fan, and specifically a fan of Metroid Prime, the first one, that, you know, there is a little bit more than meets the eye here. And I have some thoughts about where this game could really excel, and we'll talk about that later, but I wanted to throw that out there as kind of like a PSA for anybody that is unsure about Metroid Prime Pinball.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo those thoughts, yeah, pretty much entirely. Fuse Games, like, they went above and beyond. Like, I think what really makes this stand out, because they've done a lot of other Nintendo pinball games as well. You know, you mentioned Kirby. I believe they did the Kirby pinball game as well. I could be wrong. I know they did Mario Pinball, although that's one that wasn't rated very highly, but I've never played it myself, so can't really judge it for myself. But yeah, in Metroid Prime Pinball, they go above and beyond, and they find so many creative ways to do Metroid-themed pinball-style minigames in, like, ways that you wouldn't even expect. Like, just, even like, really small stuff, like giving your ball health and having it so enemies can actually damage the ball. So it's not just like, oh, it can go in the gutter and you lose that way. No, you can actually, like, lose health to an enemy. But you can also do damage to enemies, not just by hitting them, but you can drop bombs as a morph ball. And then later, once you unlock power bombs, you can do stuff like that as well. And you actually progress to other tables by unlocking items. So it actually, obviously it doesn't feel exactly like a Metroidvania, but it still has some of that unique Metroid formula present in the actual campaign itself. And, you know, or other stuff, again, like the combat saucer, which actually has Samus go into bipedal form so that she can actually shoot at targets. And just, there's so much creative stuff where it's not just pinball with Metroid slapped on it. It really does feel like it genuinely does feel like the base story of Metroid Prime retold in pinball form.
You know what this game does that's great? Have you ever played, like, pinball that's just, like, it's on, like, Microsoft, I don't know, Windows,
yeah, the
2000 or, like, what? Yeah, like, whatever those pinball games were. I remember playing them, and I remember feeling, I'm like, okay, this is trying to simulate the experience of, like, a real pinball machine, right? And I think that that's fine. But I think what this game does very wisely is it's like, no, we're a video game. We can do things that real pinball games can't, and it's going to work, and it's going to be awesome. And it's, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be limited to the fact that, like, while yes, we're playing pinball, we are also going to do things like there's enemies crawling all over the screen, or like we're going to be jumping, we're going to be shooting, we're going to be fighting bosses. Lots of really, like, clever stuff that this game does. So why don't we just go ahead and let's dive into some of the tables here, because there's what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables, I want to say, in this game. But I would say that only 3 of them are, like, classic pinball tables in the strictest sense of the word, where like you accumulate points and like you have a really long gameplay loop. And we can start off with the Talon Overworld, because I think that's I'm sure that you probably feel the same way. I think this is the most not easy table, accessible table maybe for someone to start on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely my most played table for sure.
Yeah, and so this is it's a nice table. Obviously, you've got like Samus's ship there, and a lot of different stuff that's going on in the background here. But it's a little bit more classic because there's 2 bumpers on the bottom, and that's it, and you know all the rails and stuff that go everywhere. So this is, I think, the only table that doesn't have, or that only has 2 bumpers. The rest of them are, you know, a multi-bumper tables. So you have to kind of be paying attention a little bit more when you're actually doing it. And like Doom just said, this is a table that players are going to spend the majority of their time on, because I think that it's the easiest to acquire artifacts. And I guess that we should mention that too. So there's kind of like they call it multi-mission mode, but it's basically like there's a story mode. So there's a story mode, and then there's just like a quick play where you can play on all the different tables that you've unlocked. Story mode will have you going through and picking either Talon Overworld or the Pirate Frigate, and you can, you know, do your pinball thing, and after each successful minigame that you complete, you will get an artifact. And your goal is to collect 12 artifacts, much like in Metroid Prime, which will get you to the Artifact Temple. And I had a hell of a time getting them, but I have news for you, Doom. I have breaking news, as a matter of fact. I got those 12 this morning. I finally did it.
Congratulations.
I was like, I need to try one more time before we record Omega Metroid and see if I can do this. And I grinded, and I got them, and it was so awesome. I felt so happy. But yeah, so I'm skipping ahead here. That's the general premise of the tables in Metroid Prime Pinball. And you know, the Talon Overworld, that's the place where you're going to start. There's a lot of like really fun creative mini games here. Awesome music, of course. So yeah, this is I would say it's like the Mario and Smash Bros kind of table. Like everything is fairly standard. Nothing is really too crazy. It's not too easy either. It's like a nice, accessible starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the music reflects that too, with its very chill vibes as well, which, I mean, it makes sense for like Talon Overworld. That's kind of what the area is, but like compared to the other tables, it definitely, everything about it like is an accessible table. But accessible doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, this one's for babies. Like, nah. Because again,
right, yeah.
the longer you play on these tables, the more that difficulty is going to ramp up. It's just more of a stable starting point, I think. And I think that's just true regardless of your skill levels, but especially if you're just starting out.
Well, and the thing too is like, so this table doesn't really have like, you know, a whole lot of extra gimmicks on it, but that kind of also means that like you eventually have to get like really good if you're going to progress and get all the artifacts in here. So let's talk about these mini games that come up. So Metroid Prime Pinball does a really cool thing where there is a section with like a hologram that pops out, and if you shoot the ball into the hologram, then you will trigger a mini game. And I'm just going to run down the list here. So Burrower Bash is kind of fun because like you trigger that. Can I cut you off for a moment?
And then I'll let you get back in a sec. But so I think you're doing a disservice to the hologram, because it's not just a hologram, it's a bomb slot, and it triggers a roulette wheel, and you actually have to plant a morph ball bomb to stop the roulette wheel, and that's what selects your minigame. Anyways, go on.
That's not true. You're thinking of the one where you can get like the extra ball or the bonus points or stuff like that.
You know what, you're right. Yep, that is true. Yep.
Don't worry, I got you. But that is a cool feature, actually. So we might as well just talk about it now before we get into minigames. And I think that is present on every table in some area, I want to say, where you can get your ball in and you can lay the bomb and you can have... So there's a couple different options, and the best option is obviously extra ball. That is the best option, because I lose balls in this game like you wouldn't even believe. But Force Field is kind of cool, and it creates like a little... You know, as it sounds, like a little laser that stops your ball from going in between the two paddles at the bottom. So that's a good one to have. You know what is the one that I hate, Doom, is like the bonus point one, because I feel like points in this game for me just mean like literally nothing.
I mean, it's definitely extra ball is definitely the better one. Bonus points, it's like if you're on a good hot streak and you get a good bonus points, that's just like, yeah, let's go, another one. but yeah,
the kick pad one is okay too. That one's okay.
I very much appreciate those. Those are good ones, because especially like if you're on a table for a long time, like it's inevitable that those things are gonna go away, because you only get one hit on those kick pads so they go away, and once they're away, there's no bumpers. So it's like having those respawn. It's just like, breath of fresh air.
There's a few other options that you can get too, I think, including like get battle ready, which we'll talk about here in a sec, and some other stuff. But yeah, it's definitely like a cool idea, and like you said, you can bomb to like kind of stop the wheel to get where you want. But like the holograms, I thought were cool, because like they show like a hologram of a Metroid, or a hologram of like what are those awful things called? Those things that grab you all the time. Triclops.
Yeah, the
God, those things are awful. God, they're awful. Anyways, let's talk about Burrower Bash. I love this one. It's just like this. This is the easiest minigame, I think, and all you got to do is just roll around and smush a bunch of little burrowers. I love this. It's so easy, and it's like almost like a free artifact. Actually, until you get to level 2. I seem to always die on level 2, but it's this one is a nice little intro, and I feel like it's almost always the first hologram in Talon Overworld.
Yeah, this one it's basically whack-a-mole in pinball form. You look for where the enemies are. Sometimes they'll be popped up. Sometimes they'll be burrowed underneath the ground, as those burrowers tend to do. And you just gotta hit them at the right time. Basically, they can get the first round is fun. They can get really annoying later. Just an FYI.
Really
Once you get to because it'll start popping up more burrowers, and they'll start burrowing underground more frequently. And it's just they can get annoying in the later rounds. I definitely. After, like, level 2, I try to avoid that hologram as much as possible.
Yeah, I only did level 2. I think I tried level 3 and I died, like, immediately. So they're definitely annoying the further you get. But they're not as annoying as these guys, the Triclops. Triclops Terror! And these, for anybody that doesn't know what these things are, these are those awful little critters that in Metroid Prime, when you're underneath a grate and you're trying to, like, move around, if they catch you, they'll slowly walk you back to, like, the entrance of the Morph Ball tunnel. These guys are the worst in Metroid Prime, and I know that because I was streaming Metroid Prime yesterday, and I encountered some of these guys. But they're also awful in this game. And like in Metroid Prime, you can lay Morph Ball bombs, and they will carry them and explode. But also, and I guess this kind of goes in Metroidmania as well, but, like, you basically, like, you can launch yourself into them, but it launches you right back, and like you have to be really careful so that you don't like spike yourself down throughout the hole. It's like I had trouble with these guys past level 1. I don't know about you, Doom.
Yeah, these guys can definitely be a nuisance for sure, because you definitely, if you always want to go for the bomb kills, because bombs are an insta kill just like in Prime, but otherwise I believe it's 3. You have to hit him 3 times, and you can't just like lightly touch him with the ball. Like, it has to be like a good hit. There's got to be some kinetic force going behind that hit, because if you don't, you're just gonna like lightly bounce off them and not do any damage. And as you said, once you do bounce off to them, it's gonna ricochet back, and so you need to make sure that you got to be prepared for that. Make sure that it's not gonna go into that little gap between the two bumpers.
And ditto for Metroidmania, which is a similar kind of concept where they're actually basically the same, except you're only fighting 2 Metroids instead of 3 Triclops, which is kind of nice. But these guys can grab you and suck your life away, as Doom was mentioning. I had a pretty successful time just like letting them kind of pick me up and bombing them right away, so that way like I didn't fall down like outrageously, or like I feel like I was when I try and hit the Metroids using the bumpers to launch me, I felt like I was getting spiked down like a lot, specifically with the Metroids. So I ended up just kind of sticking to bombs, but I did level 2, and then I never got to level 3. I just died right away.
Yeah, and regarding the Metroids as well, so if you get Metroidmania, 2 of them will come out, and then in level 2, 3 of them will come out, but there's sometimes you'll just be randomly playing a table, and a Metroid will just casually just walk in, just like a single Metroid will just casually walk onto the table, float onto the table, I guess. as well. So that can happen like at any point during the game, even if you don't hit the
Yeah.
hologram as well. But yeah, bombs definitely the way to go. And again, just like in Metroid, lay a morph ball bomb and it will let you go. And so, you know, again, like just there's, you know, going back to like the details of this game, it almost feels like that kind of, you know, that Masahiro Sakurai level of detail where it's like this ridiculous amount of detail that no sane person would ever catch. But it's like in a pinball game of all places, not in like, you know, Smash, the multi-crossover fighting game. And so,
well, and if you beat a Metroid too, like one of the random ones, not a Metroid Mania, they'll spawn health for you, so you can like heal yourself, which is a really nice touch. Or you can get missiles, which you can use in, I guess the next thing that we'll talk about. But yeah, it's just like it's really fine attention to detail. You're totally right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's do Beetle Blast, and this is kind of the same as a mini game in the Pirate Frigate level called Shriekbat Shootout. And so basically, you're getting swarmed with beetles coming at you, and Samus is she's not in morph ball form anymore. She's like full blown Samus. You're stuck in the middle, and she is firing constantly. So essentially, you just have to turn Samus and aim her gun at the all the beetles coming towards you. Pretty easy the first time. Moderately. It's doable the second time, but my goodness, the third time, I did it, but I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that I did not, die. If you get hit enough times, you'll stop doing it and you'll fail the mode. But the third time is just like, holy smokes, this is tough, man. This is really tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Level 3 on Beetle Blast can be absolutely brutal, and it's actually really cool the way you do it. So you don't actually use the D-pad, you use the left and right bumpers to move Samus left and right, which actually for this mode, it actually like feels like perfect. There's a lot of the turning speed. It's not too slow, but it's also not fast enough to where you're gonna feel comfortable with it. But
yeah,
again, I think it works for this mode because I feel like it ramps up the tension a lot, and yeah. So you can take
one
4
thing
hits.
that you can do too is like you stun people when you shoot them. So if you're swiveling really quickly, and people are coming, or bugs are coming at you from all sides, you can like stun them and slow them. So that I found that worked pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much what you have to do once you get to level 3, and it can get intense, especially if you're on your last hit and there's still like a swarm coming at you that are just like inches away, and you're just like, it's like the Doom 1993 cover art. If anyone's seen that, you can probably see
pretty
what
much.
it looks
Yeah.
like. But yeah, and if you don't get hit any times at all, you'll get a perfect score and get like I believe 50,000 bonus like that. So that always feels really.
A couple other things that we got going on in this level minigame wise. There's the wall jump, which is fun. Although I had a heck of a time getting to the wall jump spot in Talon Overworld. I don't know about you.
It definitely takes some practice, but I felt like I don't know. I felt like it's definitely not as easy as the gunship, which we'll probably talk about next. But that one's definitely the easiest.
Yeah.
But wall jump, like you gotta position it just off the center corner of the right bumper, and if you do it right, you can easily get that lit up.
Oh, see, this is why I'm so bad at this game, because I was just like swinging and hoping to hit stuff, and I was kind of trying to study where like the ball, like to get to the hologram, like where on the bumper I would have to hit. But I feel like I never really mastered that. But yeah, as you mentioned, so there's a couple different modes where there's like more than one ball, which is absolutely nuts. So there's gunship multi-ball. So if you get your gun or your ball into Samus's ship, I think when you get 3 of them in, multi-ball starts, and there are 3 balls that you got to keep track of, which is kind of good because at least you can lose 2 and not have it impact anything. And there's also Phase-On Frenzy, which is wild because you get 2 balls, 1 blue, 1 red. And you're collecting, they almost look like little X-parasites, actually. But you're collecting these things, and if it hits the wrong color, it like just sends it flying all over the place. And then, in Phase-On Multi-Ball, you have these like... So you have a laser protecting you the whole time, so it's kind of just like a free point mode, but you just go absolutely crazy, you hit all of the different colors, and it sends you flying, and like, it's wild. That I think Phase-On Multi-Ball is the funnest thing going on in this course.
Yeah, and it plays like the Frigate Orpheon escape sequence too, to like kind of ramp up the tension. All the lights on the table like start glitching out too. It's such a cool effect that they have going on there. But yeah, I want to go back to a gunship multi-ball specifically because man, getting a gunship multi-ball is so hype. Because, like, the ship, like, the cockpit opens up and it'll actually, like, shoot the balls back on the table, and it plays the Metroid Prime 2 arrangement of the green Brinstar theme that was in the multiplayer mode of that game, and it's so hype. The theme will just pump you up while you have 3 morph balls going around. All 3 of these morph balls, by the way, can drop bombs as well, and mini games are still active during this period. The wall jump, I believe, is closed off, but you can still activate mini games while the balls are all going around, and it gets wild and crazy, and it's so much. I love it.
It's a blast. Like it's chaos. Like it's complete chaos. But it's not the most chaotic thing, as we'll talk about later here. The last thing, I actually never really got the grip on this until I just read it right now. But they keep on telling you to, like, hurry up. And I was like, what are they telling me to hurry up to? What's going on here? But I guess you just have to accumulate X amount of points while you're doing that. So, again, I'm awful at this game, so that just goes to show you what I know.
Gotcha. I don't think I got a hurry up in my most playthrough, but again, I've only been playing for a couple hours, so maybe I'll encounter that after we have recording.
So yeah, great table. Talon Overworld is awesome. The Pirate Frigate is another option that you have at the beginning of the game when you start story mode. I'm not like a huge fan of this table actually, because like I don't know. So there's 3 bumpers in here, and one's on the top right corner, which is kind of a weird spot because like it doesn't really send you anywhere. You could just kind of do a couple circles. But like when you hit straight up, almost all the time you hit like I don't know if they're supposed to be like 3 monitors or something like that, and it's kind of, I feel like this is a hard table to to get a grasp of. Or at least it was for me. Like I would have rather stayed on Talon and like dealt with like level 2, potentially even level 3 like mini games rather than go to this table, you know?
Yeah, well, I'd definitely rather do Pirate Frigate level 1 than Talon level 3 if I've maxed out everything. But yeah, otherwise, first off, actually, before we go into the minigames, if we're talking about the Pirate Frigate, we cannot not talk about the Kenji Yamamoto Brinstar guitar arrangement on this table. The goated arrangement that would later appear in Smash Brawl.
For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's a theme where it's like, Samus is under fire. And if you've ever listened to the Zelda cast, you know that tune very well, since I was on Omega Metroid ads for like a year over on that show.
Yeah, the Samus Under Fire not present in this version though, so just the guitar arrangement as it is. But yeah, that's as you were just mentioning though, that's probably the highlight of this table, because it's not a bad table by any means, but it's definitely it doesn't put me in the comfy zone like the Talon Overworld table is.
Yeah, I agree. So actually when I finally got 12 artifacts, I skipped this table like completely. I went and got 8 on Talon, 2 in Findrana, and 2 in the Phase on Mines. So yeah, this table, I feel like, other than the music, which you correctly point out is awesome, I don't know if this table has a whole lot going on for it, at least in terms of what I am looking for in this table. The minigames are, I think they're almost all the same, except for, I think Metroid Mania is there, but there's Space Pirate Panic, which I think replaces the Triclops one, where you just gotta bash a bunch of space pirates, which is kind of fun. But other than that, I believe all the minigames are the same. You can get the Clone Ball, you can get the Phase on Frenzy.
There's also a Shriekbat Shootout replaces the Beetle Blast.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, this table's okay. It's okay. I think it's probably the weakest table in the game, though, I have to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not a bad table by any means, but, like, I would much rather be on literally any of the other tables.
Yeah. So, those two are, like, kind of the, like, quote-unquote traditional pinball tables, but I guess you could kind of say that Magmore Caverns fits into there a little bit. And so this one isn't available in the main game, but you can go and practice on it even if you're not playing Wi-Fi with anybody. So I went to Magmore Caverns and I kind of schmucked around for a little bit. I think that table's fun. It's a little bit plain, I think. Like there's no mini games going on, so it's a little bit just more like collect points and whatever. The when you're practicing, you want to get to like 100,000 points, and then it will cut you off. So I was doing my thing, and I got like the screw attack symbol came up, and I guess that's worth 25,000 points. So I got that, wall jump to get that, and then that was pretty much my time on that table. But I think that would have been a blast to play, because what can you play? I think up to what, like 8 players can play.
I thought it was just 1v1. So maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to check on that. Because I actually did have another friend back in the day who had a copy of Pinball, and we would occasionally do some pinball trials in the bus ride together. But yeah, I don't know.
So
I don't know what.
I'm just looking at it right now. You can play with a maximum of 8 DS units, but you only need 1 cartridge. So only 1 cartridge. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of DS games did this back in the day. This was really cool. You'd have download play, which would usually give less features, but I mean it allowed, again, people who didn't have the game to like play multiplayer with you, which is really awesome.
Right.
And if someone else did have the cartridge, it would unlock the features for everyone, and you could play the full multiplayer experience. I believe Pinball was the same regardless, just because it was just that Magmore table.
And I'm assuming that you would just do like a point attack, so like you're not playing like on the table with like 8 other players. I don't know if that was something that was feasible for the DS, but I would love to play this just multiplayer with a bunch of us. That'd be a lot of fun.
I think we'll talk about that at the end of the episode, I think.
Yeah. All right, so those are like the traditional tables, and there are some other tables, but so this game is really cool because it has bosses, and the bosses are on tables, but there's not really like a whole lot of other stuff. There's no mini games or whatever. It's just like you have to beat the boss, and when you beat the boss, you beat the table, and you can defeat them a couple different ways. And I guess let's start with Phendrana, which is a pretty cool table actually. There's a lot of like ice stuff going on, and there's 2 levels to Phendrana, and God help you if you fall to the lower level, because there are Triclopses everywhere that are going to throw you into the abyss, and they're right above the damn hole. So I got tossed around by these guys like so often. But Thardus is waiting for you at the top, and he's no slouch either, actually. So 4 bumpers on this table. You damage the boss by shooting yourself into him, and you get some power bombs in this table too, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. So one thing that Pinball does differently than traditional Metroid games is it actually gives you the power-up before the boss fight, not afterwards, which I actually definitely prefer in the context of Pinball, because
yes,
man, the second Thordis awakens, I always lay off a power bomb, because man, I just want to get that done as fast as possible, even though it's a really fun fight, like all things considered.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a pretty fun fight. You get the power bomb. You can. I think that this is, like, as far as bosses go, probably, I don't know, the easiest one, or like, how about the least difficult one? How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good table. And then I guess we should talk about the Phazon Mines. I think the aesthetic of this table is like so cool. Actually, it looks like so awesome, and the Omega Pirate looks awesome in terms of like how he looks on the DS. This is like a really cool battle, I think.
Yeah, all the and actually, let's talk a little bit about Thordis's the boss attacks in general, because both Thordis and the Omega Pirate, their attacks are lifted from the original game. So like Thordis,
yeah,
he'll like actually curl into like his rock form and try to like crush you in Morph Ball form. That's a really cool attack. And then the Omega Pirate, he'll actually unleash the shockwaves, and the only way to dodge those is to get onto the lower level of the table. If you're on the higher level, you'll automatically get damaged. So it's actually really interesting boss fight when fighting the pirate, in that whereas in Thordis you're trying to stay on that top level as much as possible to avoid the Triclops. In Omega Pirate, you're constantly like going back and forth between the levels so that you don't tank damage.
Like even with Thardus, if you're on the upper level too, and if he's rolling, you pretty much just have to like try and avoid him, because you can't damage him either, which is stressful. But yeah, the Omega Pirate, man, those shockwaves are brutal. Mm-hmm. And so I could be wrong, but like, if you're on the bottom in, like, the area that's not covered by the table, you can still get hit. So, like, directly above where the hole is. Because I definitely got hit there a couple times, and I was like,
yes.
And there's space pirates that are shooting missiles at you, homing missiles. So there's a lot going on in this Omega Pirate screen. And you start off with missiles as well, which is cool. But it's not like a huge weapon like the Power Bomb was. Like the Power Bomb takes away like a quarter of Thardis' health at the beginning. And like the Omega Pirate, you kind of have to build up to where you finally get battle ready. And then it's kind of like the Beetle Blast, where you stand, but instead of just shooting regular beams at them, you can fire off missiles, which is awesome.
Yeah, and it's also very much appreciated because, if you get damaged, while doing the, I believe the official terminology for it is the Combat Saucer, kind of a goofy name, but whatever. When you take damage in that form, obviously that doesn't affect your Morph Ball damage because your damage in bipedal form is separate than your Morph Ball damage form, so any hits that you take there, it's just like, again, a quick wipe of the forehead there.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on in here, and again, this is another table where there's like 4 bumpers, and there's an upper level, but like the upper level is very hard to stay in because like essentially what you can do is like it's a big circle, so you want to keep on hitting your ball so you can stay in the circle, but you also are trying to angle it so that you hit the Omega Pirate, and like there's missiles flying at you, and there's shockwaves, and like it's just there's a lot going on. It's very chaotic, but it's like a good chaotic.
Well, I guess to better describe to our viewers who might not have played the game. So basically, on these multi-leveled tables, if you're on the upper level, typically there'll be a nice slant that'll give you some leg room before the bumper appears for the ball to roll down to. That's not the case on the Omega Pirate table. It's just a giant half circle with the bumpers like pointing less than 45 degrees downward. And so basically you have to like hit it right, as the ball is coming at that full velocity through that centripetal force. And you have to hit it right as on that apex to get the pirate. And it's satisfying to like get to be able to connect shots, but it is brutally difficult to be able to do that consecutively.
Man. So, like I said, I was really struggling, like, trying to get to, like, I knew that there's a couple other tables, and I did not finish this game, but I got closer than I thought I was going to, but I was really struggling to finally get it. So I finally got 8 artifacts in Talon, and 2 in Phendrana, and 2 in the Phazon Mines, and eventually I finally got to the Artifact Temple, and holy smokes, this is the absolute most chaotic table in this game, I think. So you are fighting Meta Ridley. First of all, this table's awesome because it's very calm and serene, like the Artifact Temple is in Metroid Prime. You shoot your ball up to the center, and just as in Metroid Prime, that Meta Ridley music hits, and Meta Ridley is here to cause trouble. And it's not a boss fight in the exact same sense as Thardis and Omega Pirate is, but he's more like a distraction and a like a stage hazard almost. He's dropping bombs everywhere trying to blow you up. But you got like 6 balls going at one time here, and you're trying to. So there's the 12 artifact temples on the upper end of the table, and you're trying to essentially get the ball into the 12 slots, which will unlock the impact crater. But you're doing this with like 6 balls, Ridley dropping bombs everywhere. It's complete chaos, like complete anarchy. And like somehow I did this on my first try, and I wasn't even looking at what was going on at the top of the screen. I was solely looking at my flippers and like making sure that I hit the balls, and not letting them drop. And my God, this was anarchy, like a complete anarchy again, but in a really fun way, and it feels like Metroid. So this is fantastic.
I 100% agree, and I will also say this is probably, in my opinion at least, while not the hardest boss fight, it feels the most tense, just because, especially, like, once you get down to, like, the last 2 points, so there's like, 2 of these, slots on the left and right side of the table on the lower levels, but they're positioned in such a way where you can't just use the bumper itself to just shoot it in there. They're positioned, like, too far away, so you have to, like, hit the bumper in a way so that the ball bounces off of a wall and onto the slots, and those can be really annoying. But again, like you said, in a fun way, in a fun, tense way, where you're basically just like, it's basically you're just trying to survive as long as possible, and it's like either you or him, and Oh, once you do it though, it feels great, and you get this cool celebration music of Samus like getting out of the form, and like the Artifact Temple theme reprises, and it's such a cool fight, man.
It's very cool, and you get like a cutscene that looks like it's right out of Metroid Prime Hunters too, of Samus descending into like the impact crater, and man, once you get to the impact crater, you are fighting Metroid Prime, and I did not last very long against Metroid Prime. I was not able to beat Metroid Prime, so this is as far as I got. But I mean, you're fighting like the full Monty here. Like, you're fighting the big boy Metroid Prime. He's got like a massive laser that's coming at you. You've got a weapon called the Force Ball, which is like a powerful, like, I don't know, pinball kind of gimmick here. So I was reading after the fact, and you have to damage, there's 2 areas on either side of Metroid Prime that you have to damage, and then you can hit it with the Force Ball. I did not make it very far, unfortunately for me. But I will say that this, like, the actual table itself is fairly, I would say it's like fairly plain Jane, or like there's not like a ton of gimmicks. It's just like you've got this amazing boss fight going on. So again, very like, you know, very Metroid Prime-esque.
This boss fight is so awesome. I genuinely like, this is such a cool boss. And it's, by the way, it's the same as the Metroid Prime fight. So you'll fight both forms of Prime in this fight. There's a phase 2 as well. But basically the first part of this fight works. And so basically Metroid Prime covers up pretty much the entire portion of the upper screen. So your only safe bet is that lower screen behind cover when he fires that laser. And you know, Andy, you mentioned the Force Ball. Basically it puts this force field around you that actually lets you damage Prime. So if you touch Prime at any point in Morph Ball form, you'll die, or not die, you'll take damage unless you have the Force Ball equipped, and it'll immediately go away once you hit him. So you'll have to go back and get it every single time for the hits. But basically what's happening is his legs are blocking the I guess the alleyways, the slots, the gut. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's the rails. There you go. It's blocking the rails where you collect the Force Ball power up. So you have to hit his leg first, so for him to move his leg out of the way, and you have to go up there fast because if you're not fast enough, he'll just move his leg back. So you got to hit it once, and then you got to go in the pathway, activate that Force Ball, and then hit him. Rinse and repeat. After you take away Prime's health, he transforms into Metroid Prime core form.
Oh.
The epic finale music comes back just like in Prime. It's super hype. You don't need the Force Ball to damage him this time, but Force Ball will do additional damage to him in this form. He'll do the shockwaves just like the Omega Pirate. He can tank a lot of health, but also everything can damage him. So you start letting off your power bombs. If you activate the combat saucer, you can fire some missiles at him for extra damage. Metroids will also start swarming during that fight as well. I mean, appropriately, just like in that final battle. It's super faithful, but with enough creative liberties to adapt to the pinball form to make it work. And yeah, man, it's a wild fight. It is honestly up there with the original Metroid Prime boss fight as well. Like, they perfectly complement each other.
Yeah, it's a wild fight. I got the Force Ball and was quickly disposed of after that, so I'm gonna keep on grinding until I beat this sucker. And then, yeah, like you mentioned earlier in the show, after you beat him, credits roll and you have unlocked expert mode. I can't even fathom expert mode. I can barely do regular mode. But
yeah, I believe
expert mode.
I haven't played expert mode in a while, but I believe expert mode just starts you off at like level 2 or 3 instead of level 1 for all the mini games. I'm not sure if there's any additional caveats as well. I'd have to look that up.
And yeah, like I said, that makes me absolutely shudder trying to think of this game being even more difficult. I will say, if you are thinking of playing this game perhaps on a platform that is not Nintendo DS or 3DS, save states would be much welcome. So I'm sure that there's ways to play that, and that would make this, I think, a little bit more bearable in terms of difficulty. But yeah, so the actual game is awesome. I did hear, like, I think a lot of people, this reviewed fairly well for what it was, right? Like, a lot of people were really high on it. There was some criticism from people that there was a limited amount of tables, and I think that that's fair.
I agree.
But, I mean, like, we have every area from the original Metroid Prime. I'm sure that Metroid Prime 2...
not every area. Not every area. We don't have Chozo Ruins.
You're right. We don't have Chozo Ruins, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess why did they put a Chozo Ruins stage in there? We could have fought Flagra. That would have been an awesome fight, actually.
Sounds odd. Well, we can talk about that in a sec, I believe.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that criticism is fair. I'm sure that, like... But I'm sure that Metroid Prime 2 was... I mean, it was out by the time this came out, but while Pinball was being developed, I'm sure they didn't know what they were doing, so you kind of only had the one area to work with. I wanted to talk about the game and its release and stuff before we talk about other areas that could be really cool here, because this is definitely the worst-selling Metroid title ever, by, like, quite a lot, actually. It had 250K when I looked on videogamecharts.com. That could be wrong. I'm not sure. They didn't have any Japanese or European data inputted there. So that could be wrong. But the point is that it did not sell very well. And, like, I wonder... You know, we talked about... Give me your opinion on this, Doom. Because we talked about, at the beginning here, like, how... you know, this game is really faithful. It's not a cash grab. There was a lot of thought and care put into it. But I just wonder how many people out there were like me, where it's like, yeah, I'm not going to play a pinball game. And I think that the real downfall of this, and I think the downfall is that it released on the DS, actually. I think that was a mistake. And I think where it could have maybe had a little bit more success is if it released on the Wii. And specifically, if it released as part of, like, the Wii eShop, like one of the, I forget what they called them, like the WiiWare games or whatever they were called, for a much cheaper price. Because I think as fun as this game is, I don't know that it was appealing for people that bought it to spend as much money on this game, which is, you know, it's a short game, but it's designed to be replayed. But I don't know if a lot of people were as willing to pay, you know, full price for this, you know, or at least the same price as they would for, like, a complete full adventure, like a Prime Hunters or like a new Mario Bros or like a Zelda Phantom Hourglass or something like that. So I think the platform and the price point were probably an issue, which helped, you know, kind of not give this game the love and the, you know, the legacy that I think it probably deserves. So I don't know. I had some thoughts about that. I wanted to know where you weighed in with that, Doom.
Yeah, I think the price is definitely, like, the biggest factor that played into it for all those reasons that you mentioned. It definitely, like, everything about it definitely feels like, you know, a title that you would download off, like, the eShop or, you know, on an online marketplace today. It doesn't feel like, you know, it doesn't feel like something you would buy in a box copy, unless it's, like, something, you know, unless it's, like, you know, a limited release or something like that, if that makes sense, you know. It kind of reminds me of, like, a limited run games release, or, like, maybe the limited Tetris 99 box copies that were going for a little bit. It feels like one of those kind of deals where if you get it physical, it's because you're already a fan of the game, but most people would buy it digitally. And yeah, the game, it feels ahead of its time, but with that caveat also comes the negatives that technology and business practices hasn't caught up with that time as well for the game to be marketed properly. And I don't mean marketed as in, like, you know, how we typically talk about Metroid marketing. I mean marketed as in it could not come in a state that was going to appeal to the most players.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that I would say that the game was ahead of its time, because I think that the game is really solid, but, like, I think that like, it's really fun, as we just laid out. There's a lot going for it. But I do think that... I think it was released at the wrong time. I think if it was released on the Wii, it would have been a much bigger success. I think that if it was released 5 years ago as a mobile game, that this game would have been huge. Like, I honestly think that, like, a free download, maybe there's a premium version, or maybe you pay $5 for it, or maybe there's ads or whatever. I think that if this was on your phone and you could play, that this game would have been absolutely massive. And I actually, I thought that this was legitimately going to happen because a couple of years ago, Nintendo was like all in on mobile games. We had like, what do we have? Like Pocket Camp, Dr. Mario, that Miitopia game or whatever. I was like, Metroid Prime Pinball would be like a perfect game to play on the go on your phone. It's literally like the perfect game for that type of platform. But it didn't happen. And because it didn't happen then, I don't know if it ever will now. Like, I don't think that we'll ever... I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get this game ported onto another system, unless it's part of, like, something like a Nintendo Switch Online, if they have DS games or something like that. Which is kind of too bad, because I feel like it really does deserve, like, some time in the sun. And I just... I think the time is kind of past it, unfortunately, for it to ever get that. And I think it's going to be a really, really niche title in an already niche series, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see... we're going to talk about like what we would love to see in the future of Metroid Prime Pinball. But in realistic terms, I think that, like you said, the sun's set now. Its time is over. And while there are people like us in the diehard Metroid community that love a remaster or even a sequel to this game, expanding on all the concepts. I mean, like you mentioned, it is a very, very niche title in an already niche series, and unless Nintendo can find a good reason to like monetize it, like I don't see why they would have any reason to do it. I mean, especially like after Federation Force, I think Nintendo wants to be especially cautious of their Metroid release, and I could also imagine not just them not being able to see the profit motive on a pinball release, but also them, I mean, obviously we know that Nintendo, they don't fully get what Metroid fans want, and I could totally see them just being scared about a pinball release and being like, oh god, what if they freak out like they did with Federation Force? Oh my god, what if, are we to get like hugely ratioed and disliked? Are people gonna hate us for this? Is this gonna be bad PR? Even though, like, most of us, we would be pumped to see a pinball release, especially because, we know that there's more games coming out, but they don't know that.
It's funny you brought up Federation Force, actually, because I think that maybe I was wrong. Maybe Federation Force was the last chance for this to ever get a second life, because I feel like this would have fit in, like, right at home in Federation Force. Like, have this kind of bundled in with Blast Ball and bundled in with, like, the main Federation Force game, like... unfortunately, it kind of feels like to me like if Nintendo would have made a Blast Ball game and released it for full price, and that was kind of the game, that would have felt like what they did with Metroid Prime Pinball, where they didn't really set it up for success. And I'm sure that like a lot of people at Fuse Games worked hard on this for a long time, but I think that asking fans to pay as much as they asked them to was probably never going to end as well as they would have liked it to, and it kind of unfortunately fed into that reputation that Metroid had of releasing games that don't sell. But I think that there might be a chance for this still, maybe if there's like another game like a Federation Force or like even like a Nintendo Land where they could just like package this in with that, or like maybe it's like an unlockable in Metroid Prime 4 or like something like that. Like, I think at this point, if you wanted to give it away for free in a service or a game or something like that, maybe some people would play it, but I think that the chances are probably pretty low. I think we've probably seen the last of Metroid Prime Pinball, which is too bad.
Yeah, it's a real shame, unfortunately.
All right, well, now that we've been a little bit Debbie Downer here, let's talk about some stuff for this game that could have been really cool, and even though it'll never happen, stuff that would be awesome in a second Metroid Prime Pinball. We didn't even mention, by the way, the Rumble Pack that came with this.
Oh,
what an
that's
awesome
right.
feature! I have the Rumble Pack. That thing goes hard.
Yeah, it was really cool back in that, and it's compatible with other games too, including Metroid Prime Hunters. So if you have a copy, of that Rumble Pack still lying around, like, there you go.
If you have an original DS and you have a copy of that, you should fire it up. So I'm probably stealing your thunder here, because I think that both of us probably thought that this could be an awesome stage. But I'm gonna go ahead and start us off here and say, like, how absolutely incredible would a Sanctuary Fortress stage have been with Quadraxis as the boss? And like, you kind of already are doing pinball things in that fight where like you boost and you run into his legs to knock him down. Like, is that just not like the absolute perfect stage for a pinball thing? You got to launch yourself into his legs, knock him down, and like you can, when he's finally on the ground, that's when you can bash him and get the damage in. Like, would that not just be like the perfect pinball stage?
Quadraxis was built to be a dude. There's so many bosses and echoes which would be perfect pinball. The Spider Guardian, the Power Bomb Guardian. Dude, imagine a pinball table that utilizes the Spider Ball tracks. Oh, that would be ridiculous. Like, give it to me.
That would be awesome. Oh, I didn't even think of the Spider Guardian. That's like a home run right there. Other areas, I was trying to think of like, I think it could be cool like doing like a boss table that had like Rundus on it, and like you could maybe get like different ice tracks or something like that he creates and whatever. I think that would be like really, really fun to fight Rundus on there. And I think is like just an overall table, like not, you know, something with some different mini games and different gimmicks and stuff like that. It could have been really cool to like be on like one of the like the Olympias or the what's the other GFS Valhalla from? Yeah, I think that could have been like really cool just to have like another table where you are, you know, like just playing mini games and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the Rundus fight, what you could do is like maybe like kind of a boss rush style where you take on all three of the hunters at the same time, one after the other. Maybe as like the penultimate boss before the Dark Samus fight on the Inevitable Phase table. Something like that I think could work really well.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like there is so many levels that would work awesomely. And like, I feel like not even limited to the Prime series if you don't want to. But, you know, I'm thinking like, man, it'd be cool to like have a Super Metroid themed level, or like, I don't know, like a Ravenbeak boss fight or something like that. Like, there is so much like potential for just like cool stuff. And yeah, it's too bad that, you know, unfortunately it doesn't seem like we're ever gonna get that and see that realized. But you know, it's like they did a great job with what they had, and I would have loved to have seen what they could have done with I don't know, like more leeway. Maybe they were just stuck to like specifically the Prime games. But even like, man, that would have, can you imagine like a Metroid Dread level, or like a Samus Returns like SR388 table with Metroids everywhere, and like a Queen Metroid, and like the final thing is like you have to shoot into its mouth and then you lay your power bomb. Like, God,
that's so oh my gosh. So okay, so you know those little railways that like will give you that will like take you to like different sections of the table. You could have a thing where you stun the queen and then her mouth opens and that turns into a new railway that you that's so brilliant. I love it. That's so cool. Maybe, you know what? Maybe that's it. Maybe you get into the combat saucer, and after getting the grapple beam, and you actually have to like pull her face down and then get out of the saucer.
Okay,
and then
now
shoot
we're
it,
talking.
and then shoot it in. That's the sauce right there. That is the sauce. I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so hyped just talking about this.
Let me throw this challenge out there to all you ROM hackers. Make a phase-on hack of Metroid Prime Pinball, please. I will review it for free on Metroid ROM hack reviews. But yeah, so much that could have been done. I don't know. Give us maybe let's end on this. A Samus's percentages, and you're not allowed to say 0. But what do you think? What do you think the circumstances are that we could ever see a pinball return? What would have to be the scenario that you would see having to happen to make it not 0%?
I'm gonna give it a 1 out of 12 artifacts on this one. And I think like the last time we mentioned pinball together, I think the scenario we could see this is, like a Nintendo Switch Online like free game where kind of like a Tetris 99 style, which again, absolutely perfect for the pinball format. Again, like you could have activating the minigames, it wouldn't activate the minigame for you, it would activate minigames and traps and enemies for all the other players. And that would be like it would be similar to like Tetris and Pac-Man, where you're like putting hazards on everyone else's table and they're putting the hazards for you. But when you defeat the hazards, you're also getting more points, and the more points you get, you unlock more traps that you can lay, and just like the formula is right there. It's right there. But even amongst that format, I'm going with 1 out of 12 artifacts for the reasons we listed about 5-10 minutes ago.
Oh man, you know what would be awesome? Remember that game? What's it called? Not 1-2 Switch. Nintendo Land. I mentioned it earlier, where there's like a collection of mini games. Imagine, yeah, that's a cool game. Imagine Nintendo just goes back through all of its games, and it assembles like an all-star cast of like little mini games. So you got like Metroid Prime Pinball, Link's Crossbow Training, Mario's whatever. I'm sure there's something. And just like made a Nintendo Land-esque game like that, but with like established cool mini games. That could be fun. But I'm giving that the old 0% on Samus's percentages. But I don't know. Maybe one day. Maybe we believe hard enough. Maybe we'll see the return of Metroid Prime Pinball. Who knows?
Unfortunately, I think the return of Nintendo Land is about as likely as Prime Pinball, which is unfortunate because, like, a bit off topic, but Nintendo Land is so cool, and it's one of the 2 reasons I still own a Wii U and why it's still hooked up to my TV today. We'll
have to do an episode on Metroid Blast actually sometime in the future, because that's a pretty fun little game that they got going on there.
That game is like a good model actually for a co-op experience in my opinion. But again, that is a topic for another day.
We'll save it for another day. Is there anything else that you want to talk about for Metroid Prime Pinball before we get out of here? Anything you want to leave on?
Play Metroid Prime Pinball. You don't know what you're missing out on. Like, it is genuinely so much fun. Even if you just give it like 30 minutes, like, as we mentioned before, if you don't have a Nintendo DS or a 3DS, there are perhaps some alternate methods that you can Google to find out how to play it. And really simple. You can probably play it on most of your builds, whatever. And yeah, give the game a chance.
Definitely.
We love it.
Yeah.
And if we love it, that means you'll love it because we're right.
Well, I think like I want to say like I don't really like pinball at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I like Metroid Prime Pinball. I have a lot of fun with this game, and it's probably because I like Metroid, but probably everyone listening to this likes Metroid as well. So, yeah, I think it's worth an hour of your time if you are bored and you want to play something fun that you may have never played in the Metroid universe before. Pinball is I think you'll be surprised how faithful it is and how much it feels like a Metroid game and not like a pinball game with Metroid stuff slapped on it. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, for all our viewers, before we head off, let us know, like, if you've played Metroid Prime Pinball, let us know your high scores in the comments or on our Discord server below. We'd love to hear all your stories and your memories from this game for sure.
You know what? I wrote down a high score of mine, actually. Let me pull it up. It was 3.9 million with 10 artifacts was my highest score. So not very high.
I did not write down mine, unfortunately. I'll have to check the leaderboards after we get off here.
We'll do that. Let me know, and let us know if you do end up playing, and we'll do like a little leaderboard thing. But yeah, there it is. Our retrospective on Metroid Prime Pinball. We'll never go as in-depth into this game as we've just done now, so cherish this, and play pinball if you haven't ever, or if you haven't in a while. All right, that is going to do it for us. We are going to get out of here. I want to encourage everybody to head on over to Twitter. Give us a follow at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spiteri316. Doom is at Doominal Cross. And we are, of course, encouraging you guys to check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, leave us that sweet, sweet 5-star review, and most importantly, recommend us to that Metroid fan in your life. Tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid fix, and don't forget to check out OmegaMetroid.com. Lots of stuff going on over there, including new episodes of the ROM Hack Review series. So go ahead and check that out. That is going to do it for us this week, everybody. Until next week, though, take care.